Hi, everyone. This is John Daly again with Bernie Goldberg for another episode of the No BS Zone. How's it going today, Bernie?
All good.
Good. So today we'll be talking about the January 6th committee hearings. Now, there have been two hearings so far as of the time we're recording this. The first one was on Thursday night, and the second one was Monday morning. We can talk a little bit about the committee itself later, including some criticisms many on the right have had for how it's set up and the people on it. But let's begin with what they presented. Of the new information that we've learned so far in these first two hearings, what have you found to be the most interesting or significant?
Before I get to that, just a quick few seconds. Whenever there's an issue that's controversial, whether it's abortion, guns, or now the January 6th hearings, all you know for sure, John, all you can count on is that both sides will go to their respective corners, build barricades, and not allow any opinions they don't want to hear across the barricade. That's all you can be sure of. So, as you say, we'll get to what each side thinks in a bit. But what I found not most important, but most interesting was hearing from the people at the Capitol on January 6th, which was in the hearings on Monday, and them saying the most insane things. Well, you know this, you know that, you know the votes were stolen, you know the voting machines, you know this was all on the internet because I saw the internet's logo on when I was voting. These people are delusional. They're mentally not all there. And this is where I'll give Trump supporters a little something. When the left says this was an attempted coup, I'm thinking these cretins, these knuckleheads couldn't pull off a coup if their lives depended on it. I find the idea ludicrous. So I'll agree with Trump supporters that it wasn't it may have been an attempted coup, but they were never going to pull off an overthrow of the United States government, not these knuckleheads. They didn't have anything it took to pull off something like that.
Right, right. So one thing I thought was sort of interesting, and it's funny you kind of hear people on the right say that nothing new came out of this, and that's definitely not true. I mean, that one of the things I found interesting was that even though he had said afterwards that he had contacted the National Guard, Trump in fact did not. He didn't call on any law enforcement entity during that time, and it was actually Mike Pence who was sort of doing it by default, taking over what Trump should have been doing. I thought that was kind of an interesting piece of information.
That's another thing the right says, that there was nothing new. Let's say they were right about that. I know they weren't based on what you just said. Let's say there was nothing new to you, John, nothing new to me, nothing new to news junkies, but not everybody in America is a news junkie. Some people live normal, regular lives. And I'll bet you of the millions and millions of people who tuned in, some 20 million on the prime time hearing, for at least some of them, there was new stuff that they didn't know about. So the argument from the right, oh, there was nothing new. No, first of all, there was, but even if there wasn't, so what? There was something new for a lot of people.
Right, and I think a couple things I do want to hear more about. You know, that first hearing was more of an outline, and they promised to get into more detail. But one of the things that Liz Cheney said that caught my attention as well was that apparently multiple Republican members of Congress had approached Donald Trump after what happened to ask for pardons for their roles in trying to help overturn the 2020 election. We know a couple names have been passed around. I'm not sure where that information came from, but it seems like it's going to come out. That strikes me as pretty significant because, you know, no one's going to ask for a pardon if they didn't think they did something wrong or seriously wrong.
I found that very interesting. What I found even more impressive from Liz Cheney was when she very elegantly and eloquently said, at some point, Donald Trump won't be in the picture. And when he's gone, the dishonor on Republicans who looked the other way, who condoned his actions, who made believe it was no big deal, the dishonor will stick with them long after Donald Trump is gone. And that dishonor will be on politicians, and it will be on media figures, and it will be on the regular folks, not who simply voted for Donald Trump because they liked him better than Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden. I get that. But the people who to this day think he won the election, to this day think Mike Pence is a traitor. A poll came out just last week, a poll just a few days ago, basically, a Reuters Ipsos poll that said 55% of Republicans believe that it was leftists who led the protest. This is insane. You know what? I may mean that, I'm not a doctor, obviously, but it may clinically be insane. And the stench of dishonor will be on the politicians, the media people, and those people long after Donald Trump has found other things to occupy his time.
Now, were you able to watch much of the Monday hearing?
Yes, I watched a lot of it.
Okay, so I felt one person who really came, Trump is going to come out of this bad and was going to come out of this bad. Everybody knew that. Rudy Giuliani, I mean, that guy, you look at some of the stuff that was going on, they kind of went back to election night where, a lot of Trump's team was telling him, this doesn't look good. This looks like you're going to run into this issue where the votes are going to change. You're leading now, but things are going to change once they start counting more of the mail ballots. But everybody sort of is pointing to Rudy Giuliani, who Liz Cheney referred to as apparently inebriated. And that came from a number of people that they talked to. Seemed to be the one who was sort of egging Trump on to go out there and claim victory. And I think there's some information that Trump was planning on doing that anyway. But yeah, Giuliani's really coming across really bad, I think, in this.
But John, it's one thing if you've always been a jerk your whole life. Rudolph Giuliani was a United States attorney who courageously put mafia guys away. He was the mayor on 9/11. He was America's mayor, not just New York City's mayor. The fall of Rudy Giuliani is pathetic. That a man who was as good and as decent and as honorable as he was a long time ago could lower himself, and for what? For Donald Trump? There's a great line in the play. I'll tell you the line. I'll remember. A Man for All Seasons, and it's when a guy commits perjury that will send Sir Thomas More to his death. He commits perjury. And why did he commit perjury? Because he was offered a job as the Attorney General of Wales. And Sir Thomas More says to him, to sell your soul for the whole world isn't enough. But for the Attorney Generalship of Wales? And the analogy is to sell your soul for anything, it better be something damn important. To sell your soul and your reputation for Donald Trump, that is truly pathetic.
It is, and I'm someone, I like you, I held Giuliani in very high regard at one point. I was actually a volunteer for his 2008 presidential campaign, which didn't last long, but I was cold calling a lot of very irritated voters in Iowa. that was actually pretty hard. But no, he and I right up till 2016. It's funny to look back at it now because people have sort of forgotten. But at the time, Giuliani was actually one of the very last people, last Republicans of any name value who to get on the Trump train. I mean, he was very actually reluctant to, and he kind of did it the last minute. So it's really kind of surprising to see him go all the way over to the other extreme in a matter of just a few years.
What about Kevin McCarthy?
Oh, yeah,
Kevin
yeah.
McCarthy,
Kevin McCarthy, he's someone. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Kevin McCarthy said all the right things in the immediate aftermath of the riot. He was a man of great courage. If not a profile in courage, certainly a man of great courage. Then he goes down to Mar-a-Lago, kisses Trump's rear end, and tries to minimize what happened. I mean, the price of admission, even for Republicans, is to say what happened on January 6th was a terrible thing. They have to say that or they won't be taken seriously at all. But for Kevin McCarthy to say all the right things and mean it about how Donald Trump was responsible for this and had a lot to answer for, and then to do a 180. I don't even get angry at this. I find it sad.
I was going to say there was so much fear, right? As I think the assumption was right when January 6th happened that, Donald Trump's political power was over. I mean, they thought he was done with politics, so everybody was was obliged to do the right thing. And then those polls started coming back soon after that, and they started hearing from their constituents. I'm talking about the Republicans, seeing that the base really wanted, these people to stick by Trump. And I think that really put the pressure on them. And it's a shame because, I was looking this morning at a approval rating for Joe Biden. It's down under 40 right now, 40%. And it strikes me that, the base, people like McCarthy were so worried about losing the base. I'm like, they wouldn't have lost the base. I mean, maybe for a few months until the Biden presidency really took hold and really sent things down the crapper. I'll say that. But I think Republicans would have been united behind Biden. They didn't need to be united behind Trump.
During Watergate, Barry Goldwater, along with the Republican leader of the House and the Senate, went to the Oval Office, and they told Nixon, Barry Goldwater told Nixon, you don't have votes to support you in an impeachment hearing, and I am not one of the votes that will support you. The next day, Nixon resigned. Name a Republican today, any Republican, who has the courage to go in to Donald Trump and Mar-a-Lago and say, Donald, Mr. Trump, Mr. Former President, stop. What you did on January 6th was reprehensible. Don't hurt us any more than you already have. I can't think of a single Republican of any stature who would do it.
I can think of a couple, but these are people who would not be allowed inside Mar-a-Lago to say it. I'm talking about Mitt Romney. I'm thinking Mitt Romney would do it, but he wouldn't. The president wouldn't listen to him.
He wouldn't get on the grounds of Mar-a-Lago.
Right. So let's address the select committee itself. Now there has been a lot of criticism that it is too partisan. There are 7 Democrats and only 2 Republicans. That's part of the argument. Also, this is something I always hate seeing too. Adam Schiff is part of this, and he has lost so much credibility, especially when it comes to investigations. And of course, there's the primetime placement of that first night of the hearings, and I believe some of the other hearings as well. That sort of has added fuel to the argument that what we're seeing is too performative. What are your thoughts on some of these criticisms?
Well, first, let me say that any committee that has Adam Schiff on it lends itself to charges that it's not a serious committee. I think this one, by and large, is. But Adam Schiff, I wouldn't trust him as far as I can throw the Empire State Building. On the other matter, yes, it would have been better if there was cross-examination. Yes, it would be better if this wasn't a midterm election year. Are the Democrats out to not only hurt Donald Trump, but hurt Republicans in general, and to divert attention from nearly 9% inflation, $5, more than $5 now, gas prices, gasoline prices? Yes, That's all true. But you know what else is true, John? Donald Trump lied to his most loyal supporters. Didn't lie to people he hated. He lied to his most loyal, or not only to people he hated, he lied to his most loyal supporters. He lied to them for months leading up to January 6th. And then he lied to them on January 6th. And he egged them on, and then they stormed the Capitol. That is despicable and reprehensible. I'm not saying it's illegal. We'll find out about that soon enough. But it's ethically wrong, it's morally wrong, and it was politically wrong what he did. And if anybody is listening to us now, and if I hope not, but if anybody beyond our immediate audience believes that the election really was stolen, that Mike Pence really is a traitor, that Bill Barr is disloyal to the president because he said it was bullshit, the allegations that the election was stolen. If anybody thinks that, I am not going to bang my head against any stone wall trying to convince any of you otherwise. The election wasn't stolen. Mike Pence is not a traitor. Bill Barr told the truth to Donald Trump because Donald Trump didn't want to hear the truth. That's on Donald Trump. That's not on somebody like me or you, John, or anybody else who knows the election was stolen and that Donald Trump acted in a very, very bad way. As I say, we'll find out if it was illegal, but it was unethical and immoral. That is certain.
Right. And one thing I do always feel compelled to, and I wrote about this in my last column, but when people talk about, the commission or the committee being partisan, it is to an extent for sure, like you said. But it always one thing I noticed that people like Kevin McCarthy, and I see a lot of Fox News commentators do this too, where they fail to acknowledge that this is actually the third try on the committee. The first one was supposed to be this 50-50 9/11 style, truly bipartisan commission. And the Republicans initially asked for it, but when it came time to vote, they rejected it. And then there was the second iteration where it was a select committee where Kevin McCarthy was given 5 choices for Republicans. The Democrats had 8, but then, Pelosi refused on Jim Jordan and Jim Banks because they were very much involved in the whole stop steal narrative and the congressional efforts behind them. So this is actually the third iteration. And like Liz Cheney has made this very clear. I mean, she very much favored that initial 50-50 style 9/11 thing, and I think I did too. I mean, I thought that would have been great, but it just didn't happen.
One last comment about that. Are these Democrats political? Do they want to hurt Republicans before November 2022? Yes, they do. But when Republicans talk about inflation, the mess on the southern border, and crime, they're trying to hurt Democrats in the 2022 midterm elections, but they're also real, serious, and legitimate issues. So even if Democrats have a secondary motive, or even if it's a primary motive, which is to hurt Republicans, the issue that they're talking about, what happened on January 6th, and who is responsible for it, is still a legitimate issue. And I'm glad it's getting an airing at the hearing.
Right. And I think we'll end this with a little bit different aspect, a little bit different view of this. So just sort of the media, how the media is handling this. I've noticed, I've been watching both the right and the left wing media look at this view. And one of the things, I think I was watching CNN the other day during the hearings, and I keep hearing the commentators make the point that we were this close from having democracy overturned. I don't think like you mentioned earlier, I don't think we were that close. Those guys weren't going to do it. Trump was clearly trying to hold on to power, but there's enough constitutional safeguards that were in play to keep that from happening. On the other end, with Fox News, they came under a lot of heat for not airing live that first hearing, and they went a little bit beyond that. It wasn't, I could see someone using the excuse of, our ratings. They don't think it's, or they think it's too partisan, but they actually went without commercials for 2.5 hours. They really didn't want any of their viewers getting curious and even going over to Fox Business to see what Bret Baier was doing.
Yeah, I've been critical of Fox and the other cable channels because I don't think they're about journalism. I worked for Walter Cronkite at one time. I mean, yeah, I'm old school, but they didn't, Fox, the big Fox News channel, a cable news channel, didn't run the hearings for one reason. They didn't want to offend their audience. Their audience is made up largely of the people I just mentioned, the people who think the election was stolen, the people who think Mike Pence is a traitor. They didn't want to offend those people. If you can't stand up to the crazies, if you don't have the courage to stand up to them, then what are you doing? And it's not a news program. It's something else. Something else.
Okay, well, I think that's probably a good place to leave it. I want to thank everybody, as always, for tuning in. Leave those comments in the comment section below. If there are any topics you'd like us to take on, we're looking for other ideas. We talked about January 6th today because it's a big story in the news, but we'd be happy to talk about other things. Anything else you want to add to that, Bernie?
One last thing.
Sure.
If the left is right that we were that close to losing democracy, and I don't believe we were, who saved democracy? Republicans.
That's true. Mike Pence. There you go. Yeah.
Anyway, tell your friends, please, even if you don't agree with me, tell your friends, because you can weigh in and tell me that you don't agree with me. The more the merrier. I've said that before. Let's get more people, as many people as we can, watching these video chats. And I hope that those watching right now are happy with what we're doing.
Great. All right, everybody. Have a great day.